You Chaos fans, you didn't think I was going to leave you high and dry with the Goremongers video, did you? Absolutely not. That is of course going to be the topic of today's video, showing you how to paint up one of the awesome new Goremonger models from the Blood and Zeal Kill Team box set. Before we get into the video, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone that of course supports Mediocre Hobbies in all the different ways that it is possible to do so. It does mean the world to me. There's some very quick, easy and simple ways to support me. One, like the video. If you have any questions, make sure you do put them in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed. Those three things cost you absolutely nothing, but they make a world of difference to me as to how many people see these videos and how quickly the channel grows. If you want to help support the channel even further, there's great things like becoming a channel member on YouTube, or of course a Patreon member. Those are both linked down below. Both of those get access to an extra video every single week just for you guys, plus access to a private Discord server, events, painting competitions, monthly showcases, and all sorts of other benefits for being a member of either of those two things. So do make sure you check them out. Also, as you guys know, the hobby is getting more and more expensive as the days go on. So if you want to save yourself a little bit of money and you're from either the UK or you are from Europe, we have got you covered. We have Element Games over in the UK as an affiliate link. So if you want to check out their website, linked down below. If you click on that link, purchase anything you want from their website, save kind of 15 to 20% on your overall purchase, which is pretty cool. And then obviously I get a little bit of a kickback for that, and it helps the channel out. If you're from the rest of Europe, we have My Hobby Place, which is exactly the same kind of idea as an independent stockist of all things cool and hobby related. You click on their link, take you to their website, purchase all those cool products for yourself, save yourself upwards of 20% on all products, and of course, once again, kickback to us. So if you want to help us out there, please do check out those two links and help support the channel. All right, guys, without further ado, let's dive in and get this Goremonger painted. Okay, and this is the Goremonger champion that I've chosen to paint for today's video. Absolutely stunning sculpt. As per usual, I started with my traditional spray method, which is a black undercoat and then a light grey undercoat over that. These are both used with a rattle can, so spray cans, and we used Chaos Black and then Grey Sear. So a solid coat of Chaos Black and then a light kind of zenithal spray with Grey Sear. I've done a whole video on this. If you want to check out that, we'll leave it linked down below as well, so you can check out how exactly I do my spraying. After that, it's time to move over to all of the different base coats that exist on this model. Obviously, Guilliman Flesh is going to be used for the skin tone, then Black Templar for all of the kind of cloth and belt details. Not all the belt details. He's got like leather straps across his chest, which are going to be done in black. But the one that goes around his waist and attaches his pistol holster to him is obviously going to be not a black, slightly different color. Otherwise, there'd just be too much of the same color on the model. His trousers are also black as well, and they're kind of fitted throughout his like bionic legs, so you got to be careful which bits you get and which bits you miss. Here is the wildwood going in for the holster and the belt for this awesome model. Goremongers are definitely one of the most kind of, I think gnarly is the only word I can think of, groups or gangs inside of Kill Team. Like if I was on the other side of like a Kill Team board and I saw these lunatics running towards me, frothing at the mouth, drenched in blood, I don't think I would particularly want to pick a fight with them. You know, Vespid are one thing, you know, Crew are one thing, but these guys are just insanity on legs. Some Blood Angels red contrast. There would be an argument here to go slightly darker with this. You could start with a Flesh Tears red contrast if you so wished. But I like going a tiny bit brighter and a little bit more kind of bold with my reds. So I decided to go for Blood Angels. Skeleton Horde for the horns and skulls. So obviously he's got some like horns jutting out from the bottom. There is horns on the top of his helmet, but in the example that they've painted up, they are part of the helmet. So they're in the same kind of gold. I don't know why you could paint them bone if you wanted to. And you could paint the ones I'm painting now in gold. You know what I mean? A bit of vice versa. It's up to you. I don't really know the thought process behind why they did it that way, but that's up to them, I guess. Okay, some lead belcher was then used for all the metallic parts of this model. Obviously his crazy big gnarly bionic clawed kind of giant legs, his stilt legs. And then a couple of other details. So for instance, the tabard or the tassel-y thingies that run down his back and front. Like if this was a World Eater Space Marine, they would be done in gold. But this guy's obviously a lesser rank, not access to so much kind of pomp, so I did them in silver. But the cornate symbol for his belt buckle got done in gold. He's got a big, beautiful, ornate mask. That's going to be done in gold. The center of his chain mauler glaive thing is going to be in gold. And obviously, we don't want like bright, ostentatious gold. So we've gone for Balthazar, which is more of a brass or bronze, which obviously suits the corn aesthetic a lot more. Okay, with that, all the base coats are now in place, so we're going to move over to Reikland Flesh Shade and apply this as a single shade across the entire miniature. You will have also noticed that the model's base has suddenly got some paint magically on top of it. I don't generally go into full detail on how I do the bases on my miniatures. It would add another 5 minutes onto every video. And frankly, I find people paint up their bases a hell of a lot differently to the way I do it, so I leave that to them. Okay, with the shade dry and the base finished off, it is now time to start the layering process on this awesome model. So what are we going to do to begin with? And that is, of course, the skin. So although I only show off Cadian Flesh Tone and Kislev Flesh here, I do actually add a Berserker Blood shade thinned down in between these coats. So we are, of course, going to start with the Cadian Flesh. We are going to basically layer up this awesome model. So we're going to take our time with this. The skin is a very standout piece on this, although it's buried in kind of lots of detail. And obviously this one's got a huge big mask on. The rest of them have got like exposed faces and stuff. And obviously we're going to highlight the kind of raised muscles and those kind of areas, leaving a lot of shadow and a lot of recessed shading behind when we do so. Obviously, we don't want the skin on this model to kind of jump up and be super bright, so I am going to pull it back down again with a little bit of Berserker Blood shade, which will tone it right down again. Like I said, I use it off a wet palette, so it is technically a little bit thinned. And then we go in with Kislev Flesh for a very light highlight on top of the highest part of the skin, and that will leave the skin like that, which I think is a really nice tone for what we're looking to do here. Corvus Black then introduced for all the different black cloths and leather belts and all those kind of bits that exist across this model. Obviously, this is just a secondary color, a real undertone. No one's going to be paying attention to it if they pick up your model and have a look. It's just a color. The things need to be a color, so we've gone for that color. I also apologize if you can hear any kind of weird banging in the background. There is some construction work going on my road, which is absolutely playing havoc with my recording times. I do apologize if that is kind of coming through. We then grabbed Mephiston Red and started layering up all of those different red details. Like I said, I've always used the word tassels, which feels like the wrong thing, that run down the front of the leather strips, around the front and back of him. Also, we've gone for red on his handle. And of course, the giant tanks of blood on his back. We're going to go for the same recipe with that as well. Starting to get somewhere with the model now with a bunch of the areas already layered up. We are going to push the red one more step with Evil Sun Scarlet. Once again, this kind of harkens back to the idea you could have started with a different contrast and gone for a slightly darker tone if that is what you want. If you want the skin to be the most kind of predominant part of the model, and maybe you want to dull down the red, because obviously the red steals a little bit of attention away from the skin. And obviously the skin is one of the most kind of key features of this model. Skin and his big gnarly chain weapon of doom. Catachan Flesh is then what I use to highlight his holster for his pistol and that leather belt that goes around his thighs and around his waist. I guess this video can be broken down to three main sections. We've got the obviously base coat and shade stage. Then we do a stage of layering, and then at the very end I'm going to show you a couple of different technical paints, which are just going to add a little bit of flair to this model. They're steps that you don't need to add if you don't have these paints or don't wish to do them, but they do add an extra kind of layer of paint to the model, and it looks awesome. So you want to see what those are? Make sure you stick around to the end of the video and like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway, we are obviously working up the bone sections now. I just use standard kind of Games Workshop Tolerant Sand or Zandri Dust, and then you shop the bone over the top of that. With Lead Belcher now applied to my paint, it's time to go back and relayer up all the metallics. So even the kind of gold and silver parts, we're just going to add for a little scratchy kind of harsh highlights on all those areas, just to make them pop a little bit more. Nothing crazy, just a little bit of paint on the edges to make it pop. Now for those technical areas, we're going to go for a little bit of nihilic oxide and paint that around kind of bolts and in where kind of water would settle any lines or gaps, or around sections like that. His big golden mask obviously has lots of symbols and lots of little crevices, so you can feel a little bit in there. This just adds an extra pop of color to the model. Same thing I used on the Confessor, so it's nice to make those two warbinds kind of match each other as they are supposed to kind of fight each other in the game. On the second technical paint, we're going to use his Blood for the Blood God, obviously to add a little bit of gore to his grim chain weapon that he holds in his left hand. Obviously these guys are all kinds of Cornish, so they would definitely have blood splattered all of them. You could even go the extra mile, add a little bit of blood splatter across his torso and his mask, just to really kind of play into that whole aesthetic. But I think the subtlety of just having on the weapon really works, doesn't detract from the model itself. And when that's applied, you do have yourself a finished Goremonger champion. I'm really pleased with the final result of this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, there is another section to this box set. If you do want to see me paint up that scenery, please do let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much.